Okay, so in the last video, I went and put the leather guards on all the characters, but now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna condition these. Originally in the manual, it says to use saddle soap on the character leathers to keep them nice and flexible, and these haven't been lubricated in like 30 years, so I'm gonna go over and do that, and it'll probably change the color of them, and it'll make them more flexible so they won't tear. That sometimes happens to these old leather guards. And then I've got some other things that I'll be doing, such as, I don't know whose idea it was to allow this to happen. I guess it was just negligence that allowed this to happen. Basically what happened is the threaded rod that attaches to this air duct, somebody let it get loose and it just wallowed out that entire section, and you can actually see down there where the threads were hitting this section. Then I don't know what the deal is where people put bolts in instead of rods, because this will destroy the clevis. So I'm gonna have to replace that. I actually don't have one of those. I have new ear levers for him because those ones broke. I think it's just due to age. I think they were made out of polyurethane, and that just doesn't last that long. So that's some of the things I'll be doing. I'll also be rebuilding the air cylinders. And this is just an old mask that I have that I put on her. This is definitely not, this wasn't her original mask, and this isn't, you know, anything I just put it on there to give her some cosmetics. So that's what we'll be doing. Over here we have a Billy Bob that I got from a farm. It sat on a farm outside. I believe this is originally from the Blaine Circus Pizza. And this guy sat outside for probably like 5 to 10 years. So you can see that the Fabco cylinders are originally a bright orange, and you can see that the sun has faded them, but that's the least of the damage. It's all the rust that has occurred. But luckily these characters are made mostly out of aluminum, so I'm not gonna have to, I can save most of these pieces, but like, for example, the rusty bolts you see, I'll have to replace all of that. And then another technical genius made the decision to weld this rod that prevents the head tilt from turning backwards. Somebody decided to weld that to here, so I'll have to cut that off. Probably gonna have to replace this entire piece. And yeah, so I just sprayed this guy down completely with, I think it was PV Blaster, which is a penetrant oil, and that will help me, that'll help all these stuck fasteners to hopefully move. I'm not sure how easy it's gonna be or how hard it is. I know there's a lot that needs to be replaced on this guy. Pretty much everything that's steel on this guy, and all the cylinders are gonna need to be replaced. These eyelid cylinders, I don't see any rust on the actual rod itself, so I think those are actually rebuildable. And so I will try to rebuild those. If they're still leaking or anything, or have excess friction, I will replace them. But I honestly, those look rebuildable. There are certain cylinders like these that don't look like they're going to be rebuildable, and so I have some new cylinders for that. But like this arm twist, looks like it's got a bit of friction, but I really looks like it can probably be rebuilt. So we'll be working on that, and probably in a couple hours I'll go and just try and take him apart. It would probably be beneficial for me to get him onto a stand so that I can do all this, and I think I will. I think I'll definitely be doing that, so it'll make him easier to take apart. I won't have to worry about him falling over. So that is what's coming next. So I just finished softening the leather guards with saddle soap. As you can see, it's definitely darkened the leather guards. It's made them a lot more flexible, and so that's going to be good for whenever I'm running them. Done it on all the characters except Mitzi, and that's because I'm going to be taking her apart and rebuilding her arm cylinders. So someone in the comments had asked me how I identify what's going wrong with a cylinder. So it's fairly simple once you understand how a cylinder works. Basically, there's two things you need to think about, which is there is a rod seal right here, and then there is an internal seal in here which attaches to the rod, and that gives the cylinder its seal. So I'm actually hearing air come out of the cylinder right now. Now, that could mean a variety of things if I don't go and feel where the air is coming from. That could mean that a hose is cut on one of the barbs, or actually one of the barb fittings, it might be loose. So, but as I come up here, I can actually feel air coming out from the rod, and that's not supposed to happen. This is supposed to be a perfect seal. So what that means is the rod seal is not bad. Now, that's easy to identify, but normally what's actually going to happen is inside the cylinder, that seal that keeps the actual cylinder sealed will go bad. And you won't be able to hear that through here. You actually will be able to hear it through the exhaust, because air will come in through either one of these ports and go out the other side and go back through the exhaust. So it's fairly easy to identify leaks like this. With an internal leak, which I've got a couple of those in the show, you are going to have to just kind of listen for the exhaust. And then whenever you're actuating each individual Mac valve, once you hear that exhaust leak stop, you'll know, okay, that was the movement that was in question. So that's how I identify those leaks. And I'm going to film a video of how I rebuild these. So as you can see, I stripped off Mitzi, took off her fiberglass, and I'm really just, whenever I work with these characters, I've actually never opened her up before. So the first time I open up a character, I'm looking for cracks and welds. I'm looking for, anything with too much slack in it. Like you see this movement right here, this is solid. There's no slack, or there's very little. There will always be a little bit of slack, but you want to try to keep it to a minimum. So I'm going to rebuild those two cylinders. I'll probably also give the mech a quick little clean with a cloth to get most of the dirt off. Generally, whenever I rebuild a character, like for example the Billy Bob that I'll be fixing up, I will degrease and take apart every single one of his components. But in the case of this Mitzi, she's in great shape. It looks like the person who maintained her, they maintained her pretty well. There are a couple areas where I'm a bit confused, not necessarily in her, but in other characters. And I guess somebody did, wasn't checking after these ears, and they wallowed out this aluminum block that holds them in place. So I'll probably have to go in with some steel shims, put them in there so that this doesn't wobble around as much. That's an example of slack. So that's like obscene amount of slack, too much movement, and it just wallows out the metal over time. And then somebody also stuck a bolt through here. You never use bolts. Bolts will destroy the bushings. And I don't know why. I don't know. I guess the techs had no incentive to prepare the show. So at least she's in probably 90%. So I just degreased Mitzi. It wasn't really intensive or anything. I just wanted to get any surface dust off. So she is took most of the dust off of her. So I'm going to rebuild in pairs of two. I think that's better. If you have a movement like, say, an eyelid, if an eyelid goes out, I would recommend rebuilding both, because that's going to save you from having to do it later, having to take that entire mechanism apart. So I'm going to rebuild both these cylinders. If there are any other cylinders out, like an eyelid or something, I will replace the seals in both of the cylinders instead of just one, so that down the road I'm not having cylinder issues. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take, this is the bad cylinder, or not the bad cylinder, but just the cylinder that has a rod leak. These are not bad cylinders. These can be rebuilt, so don't want to throw these away. Okay, so as you can see, I got this to loosen on the cylinder. This is the nose cap. So I got that to loosen. Took off the clevis. I'm just going to unscrew this, pull it off. I'm going to pull the rod out. And I'm just going to set these down. We want to clean these out, clean out the old grease, clean out any metal particles that might be in there. That's going to improve the lifespan of the cylinder. So I put new O-rings on here. As you can see, they're a bit wider. That's because, over the course of 40 years, those U-cup O-rings have been compressed, and now we got fresh, brand new ones. So this is definitely going to increase the lifespan of the air cylinder. Put some brass shim stock in here to get the rod back in. Just gonna press that down in. You want to make sure you can get the shim stock back out. So I rebuilt both the cylinders and she's aired back up, and as you can see, you don't hear any leaks from that cylinder. There's no leaks out of that cylinder now, so that's a perfect movement now. I am hearing a leak coming from the head, and I'm pretty sure it's from one of the eyes. So I've got a new set of eyelid cylinders, or eye cylinders. And as you can see, I put these little extensions on them because this type of cylinder, it's actually called a Clippard 9PS, which is different than the Clippard 9SS, which they originally used, but these were cheap, so just put these little extensions on them.